Okay, today we're actually going to do this walkthrough, which is it's called data templates in Vue.js. Basically, it is a short walkthrough that shows you how to take HTML template and get Vue to apply it to a set of data. And just to give you an example, this is actually the assignment in Canvas, but you'll see there's actually this text walkthrough. So to give you context, we're going to be taking this, which is just basically an HTML template, and by the end of this, it will look like this. All that data is coming from a file. And this will be essential to you doing the project for this week, which is basically the same thing, but with movie data. Before you get started, there's two things you want to do. You'll see here in the assignment, there's actually a link to these two files. You want to actually download these because these are going to be essential for the project. So you just have to click that to download it. So those are both downloaded. Okay, and you can also follow along in this text walkthrough here, but we're going to be obviously doing this in the video. So the first thing we want to do is go to our terminal, and we want to, so you see this is my code folder, it's already set up. So we're going to create a new project. I'll just call it list template. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it that, so I don't know, it works. Anyway, so we're going to choose an option. I'm just going to go with the default options here. Right? We're going to be mostly doing default options in this quarter, and we just got to wait for Vue to create that project. Okay, so you see that we're actually done here. So Vue, when it's done creating a project, it'll actually just tell you to change into the directory of the project and run the server. We're not going to do just quite that. We're going to do a few other things first. So first of all, we can look at the actual contents here. That's all the stuff that gets set up in initial Vue skeleton, project skeleton, or boilerplate, if you want to call it that. So the first thing I actually want to do is we're going to want to set some Vue configuration options. So I'm going to actually create the file vue.config.js using the touch command. Touch is a Unix command. If you don't know already, it just creates a file with nothing in it. So we've done that. The next thing I want to do is actually open VS Code for this folder. Okay, so we see we have our folder here. Let's go ahead and make that a little bit bigger so it takes up the screen. Again, here's the contents of the folder again. In this case, we have the Vue config that I just made. And the one thing we want to do here is we want to go ahead and set the config options. So here we're going to set module.exports. Now the things we want here is the public path to be blank instead of being /, and we want the output directory to be docs. Now, why are we doing this? This is because we're actually deploying this to GitHub. And so the way GitHub does it is we're going to be reading it from the docs directory, and we need to set the public path because otherwise it would try to go to the root of the server, and we don't want that. So anyway, that's set. So we'll save that. We're done with that for now. Now the next thing we want to do is get those files that we downloaded, the app.vue and the okidata.js into our program. So we want them into the source directory. So I'll get the app.vue and I'll copy it over here, and you're going to see it's actually going to overwrite the existing one. That is okay. We're actually replacing it. That's fine. The reason why is this actually has a lot of style information. So you see there's actually a lot of style here that was just easier just to provide it to you. So that's there. The other thing is we're going to take that pokidata.js and put that in the assets folder. Why the assets folder? Just because it's an asset. And you'll see that we actually link to it right here in app.vue, and it's looking in the assets folder. Now, if you wanted to, you could put it somewhere else. Just make sure you change this link here so it gets that data. What is that file? Let's take a look. It's just basically a giant JavaScript object that has one thing is image src, image source, which is basically a URL for where the images that we're going to be using come from. And then there's an array called Pokédex, and it's just got a bunch of objects that are information that we want to display. So we have all this, and we've got our initial setup. So let's go ahead and open a terminal here, and we'll do npm run serve. So this is going to run our development server, which will let us open this in the browser. So if we open that up in the browser, so it looks like that initial photo I showed you. This is basically just a bunch of HTML with nothing dynamic in it. So if we go and look, well, actually, we can take a look at that. It's right here, this whole template section. There's this div here, there's div there, h2, all the different elements. Okay, so let's get going. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're taking information from that array in PokeData, this Pokédex array, and it's already imported here, and it's made available as part of the data function. So all we need to do is start referencing it. Now, the first thing we want to do, though, is we basically want to repeat this whole div for each element in that Pokédex array. So we're going to use the v-for directive, which you can read more if you go to the walkthrough here. There are links in here. You'll see there's actually a link to some information in there, but we're just going to do it here. So we're going to say we want this div to repeat. So I'm going to say v-for equals. Now the way v-for works is it's kind of like a for loop. In JavaScript, we're going to say Pokemon in Pokédex. So what it's going to say is for every element in the Pokédex array, it's going to create an object called Pokemon that's going to be iterated in this. So we just have to reference to Pokemon.thing, and we'll have access to it here. Now, the one thing we also have to do is when we're working in Vue and we use v-for, we always have to give it a key. It's recommended, but the program we use to assemble our web page will actually not work if we don't do this. So we're going to give each element here a key, a unique key. In this case, it's going to be the name. All right, so let's go ahead and save that, and let's see what happens to our output. So you see that now it looks the same, except there's now 12 of these things. That's because there's 12 elements in the array. So let's go take a look. You see there's 1, 2, 3, all the way down to index 12. So that's why there's 12 boxes now, because it's creating one for each thing in this array. Except this isn't very informative. We want it to actually show names and stuff. So let's go back and take this. So here for Pokemon name, this is where we're going to use the mustache syntax, right? We do that, and then we can now, inside that mustache, we can reference data. So we're going to say Pokemon.name. So now instead of saying Pokemon name, it's going to actually list the Pokemon's name from that array. So let's see what that looks like. You see that now each of these boxes has a different name. So that's what we want. Now, for these things that are just simple data, I'm going to go ahead and do the mustache syntax for each of these. So this is going to be Pokemon.index. This is the description. So we'll do mustache Pokemon.description. Now, if you're wondering how I know that it's description and index, these are just the names of variables in this array. So it's name, index, description, height, and weight are the other two I'm going to do. So this is going to be, instead of 1, 2, 3, it'll be Pokemon.height. And then this one is going to be weight, Pokemon.weight. So we're going to save that. It's going to compile or transpile or whatever. And so here we go. So we see that now all of these have information in them. So we're almost done. And when you think about it, there's just a few things that aren't done. First of all, you'll see these types are not correct. And the images, which are supposed to be there, are not. So we haven't done that yet. That's easy enough. So let's go to the types first. So the way the types work is, if we look at the Pokemon data, types is a part of the object, and it is an array of strings, with the strings corresponding to whatever the type is. Now, if you look at this here, you see that these are actually styled. This is where all that style information comes in. So if we look at this one here, you'll see that this is the example normal and steel. They just have the class equal to the name. And so if you were actually look in the style down here, let's take a look in the style. You'll see that there's a whole bunch of style information for each type for the class, with a class of that name. So if we set this to class normal, it'll look like the normal color. If we set it to class fire, For those of you that know Pokemon, you'll see that I try to get the colors right, but it's not perfect. So now you'll see, okay, now it's styled with the fire colors. Or for those of you that want psychic. So it's, although it still says fire, let's fix that just for. So that's all we need to do is we need to tell Vue, hey, for the things in this array, create a list element that has this as the content, but has the class equal to that as well. So let me show you what I mean there. It's a little bit confusing. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to use another v4. Why? Because there's up to 2 elements in this array. So for each thing in the array, make a list item. So v4 equals type in types. And then, as always, we do a key, and we're going to just have it be type. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. This is actually Pokemon.types. Okay. And then close the LI, and we're going to mustache it here. We're going to say type. So what did I just type here? I keep saying the word type. That's going to be helpful. So we're saying, okay, we're going to iterate for all the things that are in this Pokemon.types array. We're going to say, we're going to call that thing type, and we're going to say, hey, just put that text there. So we'll save that. You'll see that now all of a sudden all of these have, okay, grass, poison, fire, water. So the text is appearing there, but you see it still doesn't look right. It doesn't have the right colors. First of all, let's delete these example ones. So this is where we're actually going to do binding. What's the vbind directive? So vbind basically says, hey, set this property equal to whatever I put here. So in this case, I want it to be equal to the variable type. Now, you could do something wacky and wild here, right? I could say, no, let's not be wacky and wild. But yeah, you can put whatever you want here. So if I did Pokemon.name, then this would set the class to the Pokemon's name, which is super not helpful. Let me show you what I just did there. So see, this element now has the class Ivysaur. That doesn't help us, but at least you know that you could put whatever you want in there to control what the class is. But in this case, I want it to be type, which is the type in our v4 directive. So we'll save that and go take a look. So now you see that each one has the appropriate class, which then gets it the correct style. So we're making progress here. In fact, we're almost done when you look at it. We just need to get the image there, and then we're going to do some cosmetic stuff. So for the image, you'll see the image tag is up here. Now, how do we reference the image? Normally, remember, if you know images, we would say source equals, and then we'd put the URL to the image. This is where we're actually going to use the vbind directive again to set that source equal to. Now, if you want to pause the video and see if you can figure it out yourself, this would be a good time. But let's just go ahead and go forward. We need that URL, which is over here. It's the variable image source. So I'm going to say, sure, it's going to be image source plus. Now, I didn't actually tell you how this image data is stored. These are actually, this URL here, you'll see is actually the official Pokemon website. The images are all this URL plus the 3-digit index plus the PNG extension. So we just want this to be this URL plus the 3-digit number plus .png. Sure, let's do that. Plus Pokemon.index plus .png. Oops. Okay. So this says, make an image and bind to it the source of this string plus that 3-digit number plus this file extension. So we're going to save that. Let's take a look. You'll see that now it's loading those images. Now, these are loading off of the official Pokemon website. So if they are not working for you, there may actually be a problem with the official website. So just be aware of that. So now we're pretty much done. However, there's 2 things I want to do because there's that are not quite right. First of all, you'll see right here it says types, but there's only one thing. I don't like that. Right? We want it to be better. Types, only one thing. No, we want to say type if there's only one. So what we're going to do is go down to that header right here, types. And we're going to use another directive called the vif directive. So it's vif, And this is just a conditional, a true-false thing. So we're going to say, how do we know if there's if there's only one type? Well, it's going to be the length of this type's array is equal to 1. So I'll say vif pokemon.types.length less than or equal to 1. I'm saying less than just in case. And then we'll put type. So I'll save that and we'll go take a look. And you'll see that, oh, it says type. Now it still says types. Oh gosh, why does it still say types? Well, it's because we still have this h3 here that's always being displayed. So we're going to use the v-else directive. So you see here, even the tooltip says denotes the else block for a v-if or v-else if. So these always have to, when you're doing Vue v-if conditionals, you have to always put them together. But this says, what this is saying right here is, if this thing is true, display this h3. This is saying, if none of the previous ifs are true, display this thing. So if we save that, and we'll see that now, it says type, type, types. Types, types, type. So that worked. So that's that. So there's one last thing I want to do. And that last thing is, you'll see in our page that the height is being displayed as inches. But if you actually were to go to the official Pokemon website, you'll see that they always, at least in the United States, list them as feet and inches. So we're going to do something that's called a filter. So we're going to go over to our Vue instance information, and we have filters. So this is basically they're kind of like functions that we're going to say, if these are applied to a mustache template, then it'll do certain changes to it. So what we're going to say is create our filter section, and we're going to, what do we want to call our filter? I'll call it inch to feet. And it's a function that takes a number. And let's see, we'll say feet is equal to, and this is a throwback to your JavaScript programming, math.floor number divided by 12. So that says feet is going to be the number divided by 12 rounded down. And then let inches equal number modulo 12. So remember, modulo is the thing that takes the remainder after you do the division. So divide by 12, take the remainder. Now we're just going to return. We'll do a template literal here with feet. And then inches. So I'm just using a single apostrophe and a double apostrophe to do inches and feet. So we'll put that there. So that's got this filter now. Now to apply it, we go over here to where we have the height, and we're going to do space, put a pipe, which is a vertical line. It's I believe it's, at least on my keyboard, it's the same key as the backslash. So on above the enter key, your keyboard may be different. So we're going to go inch to feet. So now this is going to say, display this number here, but before you do, apply this filter to it. So we're going to save that. And you see that now it says, oh, what's this inches here? That's because that's right there. So we'll delete that. So now it says 3 foot 3 inches, 6 foot 6 inches, 5 foot 7 inches. So there you go. So we've now basically taken that standard HTML and turned it into a Vue template that is now displaying our data dynamically. And if you wanted to mess around with this, you could. For example, you could add more Pokemon information after number 12, and it would get compiled by the Vue. So you just add them into the Poke data just here at the end. So there you go, though. We're done with that. So what we want to do is we can turn off our server. Now we want to build it. All right, so we're going to do npm run build. And this is actually going to take all these Vue files and make them into a complete web page. And then store those in the docs folder. So you see it says it's done. So we go to the docs folder. And you see that here we have an index.html, some JavaScript, some CSS. Now, you've looked at a few Vue repositories before, but you'll see like this is very difficult to read. You can see some familiar names in there, but it's still pretty complex. And same with the JavaScript. This is basically unreadable. This is what's called minified. It also has all the Vue code and everything else. But now if we go to the index.html and open it in our live server, this is just our standard live server, you'll see it displays fine. So our page is ready to deploy. if you were a web developer working, you had your own web server, you would just take this entire folder, right, the contents of that folder, and copy it to your web server. But in this case, we're going to publish it on GitHub. So this is the part where we go to GitHub. I'll open up my GitHub here. And we're going to go to our repositories, create a new repository. What did I call this? This was Vue list template. You don't have to have the same name, but I recommend it. So Vue list template, an introductory Vue project. I don't want to set any of these files here because I want this to be empty. So I'm going to hit create. It creates it. Now it gives me this screen. This actually gives you some directions on how to, basically this down here is what you want to do. In fact, we could be super lazy and we just hit copy, go to our terminal. Or I guess I can go to this terminal. Doesn't really matter. We'll do it here and I'll just hit paste and hit enter. It's actually going to do both of those things in a row. So it's going to get remote add origin, just adds this as the place that it wants to push to, and then get push pushes it. I'm going to refresh that, and you will see that we now have our repository here. Of course, what's the problem? I didn't actually commit anything. So let's go ahead and git add, git commit. Oops, I forgot. So just committed everything to Git. Now we're going to push again. And now it's going to send everything up to GitHub. And refresh this. And now you have all the files, including this docs folder. So now we just want to go to our settings, go down to GitHub pages, and now we're going to set it to be the master branch / docs folder. So what that's doing is that's saying, okay, run that part as the web page. So now we'll see it gives us a URL, which it still has to get set up. That can take some time, but at least now it's there. In a little while, it'll actually show us our web page, and you're done. That's all you need to do, and then you just need to submit that on Canvas as part of this walkthrough. If you have if there are any issues while you're doing that, just make sure to double check that you're doing all the code in the app.vue correctly. Make sure there's no typos or anything like that. But other than that, you are good to go.